What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of NJ Healthy Heat, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Matthew De La Rosa, and today I am joined by Tyler Benson, owner and founder of Premier Hitting Lab out in Denville, New Jersey. But before we get into our conversation, I want to give a quick shout out to some of the companies that I have worked with and I partner with that have helped my business grow. One of the companies is Prospect Gloves. They're an amazing glove company that I currently use. I used Rawlings and Wilson growing up, and then I always was somebody who wanted an extra flair into my glove. So the ability to fully customize a glove was something I never had the ability to do. And then when I met the guys over at Prospect Gloves, I couldn't, imagine what they were doing. I couldn't even fathom what they were doing. So they're able to fully customize gloves, put your logo on it, put the color scheme, the web, the colors of the laces, whatever it may be. It's a former professional baseball player who's actually still playing. So not a former, professional baseball player who's still playing, and they make them specifically for professionals, but now they've opened up their market to include everyone. So if you want to check out their gloves, again, it's Prospect Gloves. The discount code is NJHH20. That's going to get you 20% off a fully custom glove. The other one is just a locally owned company. They're Pure Rush Shades. If you're an athlete or a parent of an athlete who, like me, loves to have sunglasses, but maybe not the most responsible, and you lose glasses all the time, this is a great company to have. They're a fairly affordable sunglasses company. The code for that is just NJH10. That's going to get you 10% off all of your glasses. So again, really, really appreciate you guys checking those out. As always, if you can also hit that follow button. This podcast is put on just for you guys. Nobody here is getting paid, not paying coaches. We're not getting paid. This is all just for you guys to soak up as much information as possible. So appreciate you sticking with me through that. Now let's get into our conversation here.
Let's do it.
Tyler, go ahead, man. The floor is yours. Go ahead and give us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
All right. Yeah. So my name is Tyler Benson. I grew up not too far from my spot now in Denville. Montville, went to Montville High School. Then I went to Division II school, Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania. I was there for 3 years and then was fortunate enough to get drafted by the San Diego Padres. And then I spent 4 years in their minor league system. While I was there, they were the number one farm system in the league. They just signed Manny Machado. They had Tatis they just called up and all that. And I played with a lot of really good guys and made it all the way up to Double-A, further than I ever thought I ever would. And then after COVID hit, and they got rid of a bunch of teams, and I was unfortunately within those cuts. Went to go play independent ball for a month for the Sussex County Miners, and kind of saw the writing on the wall. I didn't really love showing up to the field anymore. Retired, and then I ended up coaching for 4 years after that, and then just opened up my own hitting facility over in Denville.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Yeah, quick on the independent ball, like what is that like? Because I thought about going down that road. I ended up going the Mexican League, and I'll tell you, the Mexican League was sick. That brought back my joy for baseball because they're a different animal of fan
Fans are
down there.
crazy over there.
Yeah, man, it's really interesting and like I don't know. I was getting bored of just like the minor. You know how the minor league games are. They're
Yeah.
slow and uncompetitive, and then you get down there and like it was very interesting. So,
Yeah,
what
dude.
do you
And you
think?
know what? That's something that I almost wish I tried to do was either go overseas somewhere, Mexico, Dominican Republic in Winter League, I heard is insane also. Even
Yeah,
like to be fortunate enough to go and play in Japan. I know some people that played in Japan, which apparently those games are insane also.
yeah,
Um, Independent ball around here in the Jersey area is very similar to minor leagues, but just it's not affiliated with the MLB or an organization. So I mean, there's fans that come from the area, but it's the same grind of you show up at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, you don't play till 7, you go through all your stuff. And it was one of those things where I trained all off season to play and I got cut a month before spring training and I was like, all right, I need to go play somewhere. So I wanted to try to continue to play. And when I got there, it was just, I think I was bitter from the whole situation. And when I started showing up to the field and I wasn't loving it and didn't want to be there, I kind of knew, hey, I think it's time for me to kind of hang it up. You shouldn't be doing something that you don't love doing anymore.
yeah, definitely. And that's interesting because like as a kid, we all grow up loving baseball and wanting to get to that top level, and then once you get to that top level, you realize it's not really as glamorous as maybe you thought it was going to be. You
Yeah.
see the big leaguers on TV, and that's what you're still striving for. But that period of time in between getting drafted and hopefully one day getting your name called up to the big leagues is they're just two different things. I've never been fortunate enough to have my name called up to the big league, so I don't know what
Yeah,
that feeling is like, but I know that looking back on my career, I'm super fortunate and super thankful to have the opportunity to play pro baseball, but it was nothing like I dreamt about in my bed, and it wasn't anything that I was necessarily prepared for. So I'm curious on your take on what, maybe some things were throughout minor league baseball that you just were not prepared or like
expecting.
didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's one of those things like just like you said, you get drafted and you're like, all right, I'm in pro ball, let's go. I'm going to the minor leagues and you're thinking, all right, I'm right there. I'm about to be in the big leagues. But then
You're
it's a
right there.
whole
You think you're right
yeah.
there.
You think you're right there, but then you get there and you're like, okay, I got to go through rookie ball, then I got to go through short season A, then I got to go through low A, then I got to go through high A, then double A, then triple A, and it's like there's another six levels you got to try to get through. So it's like you start at the bottom again. Um, I mean, again, like you said, getting to pro ball is crazy, but it's okay. You get there now, you're competing against guys that went to Texas, Texas Tech. There's 17-year-old players from Latin America that are twice your size, and it's okay. Now, how are you going to stand out? And then it's also things I didn't expect where you think it's going to be glamorous. You're going to have all these beautiful buses and hotels and the food. And at the spring training complexes, it's all like that. But then when you go to affiliates, depending on where you are, it's not like that, you know? I'd tell one of my favorite stories is when I got called up to double A for the first time, and I guess the only time I was like, oh, sick, I'm going up to double A, let's go. Like, I'm going to have a sweet hotel. And I go out to Amarillo, Texas, and I get there, and they're like, so none of the apartments have room for you, but they can put a blow up air mattress in the living room of one of the guys. And I was like, okay. So for 2 weeks, I slept on a blow up air mattress in the living room of two of my teammates, David Bednar, actually, who's now with the Yankees, and Jesse Schultens, who actually was with the White Sox for a little bit. Um, and so that's kind of one of my things. I was like, all right, I'm going to double A. And then I slept on an air mattress for 2 weeks.
Very humbling. Very
Yeah.
humbling. Yeah, I bet you they're doing. You think they're doing that in the big leagues? You think they're having to sleep on the
No,
airbag there?
definitely not. Definitely not.
No, no, no. So like what when you got to the Padres, was there ever a moment when you first got there where you're like, bro, I'm a small town kid coming from small town New Jersey. Yeah, I don't belong here. And if so, like what was that moment of like, dude, I am like around some really good baseball players? Because I don't think until you get there, like because you only know what you can see, right? So
Yeah.
like you don't see these dudes, man, and then you get there and you're just like, bro, everywhere I look there's a guy who's throwing 95 with gross stuff in the zone. It explodes. And there's a guy who's, hitting balls that crack off the bat that you've never heard before. And it's just like,
Yeah.
here we are.
Um, yeah. I mean, honestly, I think my first experience with that was honestly, um, my first year of pro ball. So I mean, I never really played outside of the Northeast area other than I went to Georgia in high school for a tournament.
Yeah.
But like I was from small town in Jersey, and then I went to a school in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, which was a good conference. And played some high talent. But when I got to pro ball, my first weekend, there was guys from like in the first top 5 rounds that were drafted from Texas or Coastal Carolina or out of high school, and it was all that where I was like, I was drafted in the 31st round, junior out of college in a small town. Like, why am I competing or how am I with some of these guys that have played in these sold out stadiums, who have played in front of thousands in the College World Series, and now I'm playing right alongside of them? It was one of those where it's almost like you fake it till you make it. You
Yeah.
don't feel like you belong, but you have to act like you belong. Because if you don't act like you belong, then you're really going to stand out like you don't belong. Um, so that was probably when I first got out there for rookie mini camp, and then like I'm on the field with all those guys. I was like, okay, I need to act like I belong.
And so was it just like a huge learn like coming from a small D2, I came from a D2, right?
Yeah,
You're not around that caliber of player on a daily basis. Like you might have had some good teammates and things like that, but now you got a whole team built of just like dudes who are probably some of the
dudes.
best players you've ever seen. What was that kind of learning adjustment or learning curve to be like, all right, I either got to step my game up or hey, I'm prepared for this. Like where was your preparation, I guess, in regards to everybody else's?
It was a little bit of a mind shift, but then also, I mean, not that I didn't work hard, but it was like, okay, I'm here, but now I need to work harder because I don't have that tag of, hey, I wasn't a top 5 rounder. I didn't go to Texas and play against some of the best competition in the country. I was from a Division II school, so it was one, I had to mentally be locked in every single play, every single pitch, every single at bat. And I was showing up an hour early and making sure that I was getting my work in early with coaches to be able to try to stand out and improve more than some of these guys. And one thing I made sure I did every single year was I went out a week before spring training started to practice outside before spring training started. And when you do that, you have to house yourself. So you have to get a hotel room. They'll pay for your flight, but you got to get a hotel room. So I had to fund the hotel room for a week, but I come from New Jersey where it's snowing all the way up until you leave for spring training. So it's one of those things where some guys that are training in Florida, California, Texas, they can get outside, get live at bats, see live balls off the
Yeah.
bat. I was like, all right, I need to go out, especially in spring training, a week early so I can get outside in Arizona and see a ball in the air. Like I moved to the outfield when I got to pro ball. I needed to get live reads. I couldn't just go inside and get a ball in with a 16-foot ceiling. So just little stuff like that where it's almost you have to make up for almost lost time of not playing against that kind of competition all the time.
What position did you play in college?
I played three different. So I got there. I was a middle infielder by trade, and
Okay.
then when I got to college, there was a all conference guy at second base, all conference guy at shortstop, where I played middle infield, and then same thing with first base. So infield was clogged up. Um, but then I played first base in high school for a couple years, and like a week before our spring season started, my freshman year, the first baseman got kicked off the team for some nonsense. And so they put me in at first base. And so I played first base my first year. And then I moved to left field my sophomore year. And then I moved to second base my junior year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you
And so
finish
like,
second
and
base?
that's when I finished up at second base. And then when I was going through the recruiting process, they were like, oh, we don't see you or the scouting process. They didn't see me as an infielder in pro ball. They saw me as an outfielder. So that's where ultimately in my pre-draft workout, I was in the infield. I fielded balls at shortstop, threw across the diamond, all that. I didn't do really any outfield stuff until I got to pro ball
Yeah.
and a little bit my sophomore year.
Yeah. Yeah. I had something similar to that because I was a shortstop all the way through college. Third base, I would say middle infield because I played middle infield and then some third base. And then through my pro workouts, I definitely pitched for them, but also did a lot of catching. I was a left-handed stick, bigger body, had an arm, and like just
Dude,
couldn't move that well. So they were like,
yeah, there was a,
"You can catch." I
yeah,
couldn't.
well, I couldn't catch either, but there was actually a hot second there. My junior year of college, when like scouts were starting to kind of come around and talk to my coach, I went with my coach to the field and we worked on catching because he was like, "There's a chance they might bring you in as a catcher," and I didn't catch since like little league, so I felt so lost in the gear. We did it one time, and then he was like, "Yeah, no, you're not gonna do that." So then we didn't ever do that again. So I'm glad that didn't happen because the catcher lifestyle is insane. Um, but yeah, it was one of those things where like all the middle you had to be super smooth in the middle infield and I was good but I wasn't like that. And I could run, so I think the outfield honestly was a perfect fit for me. But it was a tough transition, not having any experience really there other than one season in college.
What was the 60 time at for you? If it,
6'7",
6'7",
six
yeah,
seven, six
big.
six. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely could run. Yeah, that helps you a ton. So if you're a baseball player or parent, just having the ability to run is always going to play at any level of professional or college or high school baseball.
Yeah, yeah, and my big thing was like I used the speed to my advantage where I lacked in some power, like stealing bases, going first to third on a single, all that stuff, and that was important to be able to kind of showcase those other areas.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think was like what do you think right now when kids think about professional baseball? What do you think's like a lie that they're probably telling themselves that isn't actually true once you get to professional baseball that you've kind of seen?
That's a really good question. That a lie that is probably that it's going to be all sunshines and rainbows, and when you get there, it's the best time in the world, and you're going to have all the opportunity in the world. Um, And what I mean by that is like when you get there, you're like, let's go. I'm in pro ball. I've made it. They want me to get to the big leagues. That's true. But depending on your draft stock and all that stuff, like some guys get more opportunities than others. And you can only control what you can control. And that goes for any level, not even just pro ball, but even more so in pro ball. That's probably the one thing that I really hung my hat on the entire time was you can't worry about who they call up, why they call them up, who gets in the lineup, because you can only control what you can. Right? Like there would be games where I'll go 3 for 4, but they'll put somebody else in the next game because, hey, maybe it's a top 25 prospect that they want to get in and get more at bats. Um, so I think the biggest thing when you get to pro ball, everyone's like, "Oh, that's amazing! Like they're gonna try to get you to the big leagues." No, like it's not always that way. It kind of depends on your situation, your opportunity, and if you could take advantage of that opportunity, and in making sure that when you do get those opportunities, that you're doing whatever you can to showcase that you belong and that you can make that trip from single A all the way up to double A, then eventually, hopefully, to the big leagues.
Yeah, and being a late round guy, I was a late round guy myself as well. Like you're fighting an uphill battle, if at all, even an uphill battle, because sometimes you're just there to be a sparring partner for, the
Yeah,
guys who they have plans of calling up, and never in their minds when they drafted you did they think that you were going to be a potential big leaguer. They just thought, wow, this guy could. There's a 1% chance this guy shakes out, but there's a 99% chance that he's going to at least come in and like be a guy that we can rely on to help the guys who are going up into the system. So that's something that I didn't realize going into the system of like, man, I'm definitely not supposed to make it. Like I don't think these people
yeah,
really drafted me in thinking that like, wow, we really see Matthew in the big leagues. I think it was
yeah,
just like, hey, we got to make picks, and this guy
yeah.
is
And if you're
enough.
fortunate enough to get picked, you're like, let's go. But you don't realize it to your point, like till later on, where it's like you sit back and you're like, wow, okay, like I went up because this guy got hurt and they needed to fill a spot until he got healthy. So now I'm there, but when he gets healthy, then you get sent back down. You're like, why'd you send me up if you're gonna send me back down? But it's they have guys like that they think they have that 1% chance, and you can get lucky if you get sent up and then someone else gets hurt. Now maybe you get brought up even more, but it's like you just got to roll with the punches sometimes, and you
Yeah.
just got to be grateful that you're there. You know what I mean?
Grateful
Like
that you're there, and I'm
even
not saying that you
even
can't make it either. If you're a late round draft pick, we see stories all the time, but the chances like dramatically drop. Not everybody has the same chance, and you kind of know that, right?
yeah,
But you maybe only think about that for like your first like 1 to 2 rounders. But dude, everybody who's in like the top 10, like they're pretty much the guys, and then everybody
yeah,
after that, it's like, yo, you better be coming swinging with your dukes, or else you're only
yeah. You
going to
better
be
not have
one.
like 1 or 2 bad weeks, and then you can
Yeah.
hopefully get your way up there.
So what advice would you give to a if there's a professional guy listen to this, and then we'll talk more like high school, college stuff. But
Yeah.
if there's a professional guy listening to this who's a late round draft pick, or a kid who maybe becomes a late round draft pick and can remember this conversation, like what's some advice you would give to them as they journey through professional baseball as a late round draft pick?
Biggest piece of advice I would give, and this is something that I didn't really realize until kind of after the fact, is show up like it's your last day. Show up like it's your last day, work hard, and do everything you can to make their decision impossible to cut you or release you. Because think about it, it's going to happen at some point. So you might as well do everything possible to not let that happen. You're going to have less opportunities, unfortunately, than some of the, like we talked about, the top 10 round guys. But if you show up every day, you do your routines, you put in your work, your mental work, your physical work, and you hustle on and off the field and do all that stuff, you're setting yourself up for a good chance of, hey, if one person goes down, they'll be, hey, look at this kid putting in the extra work, um, to hopefully be called back up or be considered to be called up in replacement. So I think that was one thing that I made sure I did, was every time I showed up, it was like, okay, if I get released today, I'll be okay with it because I did everything I could to try to stand out.
Yeah, no, good stuff, man. Good stuff. And so you get released. Obviously, a very tough day. I'll never forget it. Getting that phone call from the GM. I don't even know if mine was the GM. I can't remember what his title was, but
Yeah, mine was
yeah,
like the player development. I don't remember
director of player
either.
development. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know who he was, but I don't remember what his title was at the time. But yeah, anyway, so you get cut, and then like in your mind, you obviously went to indie ball, but let's say that your last day of indie ball, when baseball comes to an end, and you decide like, all right, I'm looking to the right of baseball, it's behind me now. What are those days like to try to get your life into
On track and do something
reality?
else
Yeah,
after
after
playing.
baseball, what are you doing?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, those are some of the darkest times. I mean, for any player, right? Is you play your entire life. Your summer ball, your summers are playing, your springs are playing, your winters are training. Um, that was something that I was fortunate enough. I was giving hitting lessons and working with players in my off seasons, just to make some extra cash. Because obviously, just in minor leagues, you're not getting paid all year round. So I was doing
Yeah.
something to make some extra cash. And at the place I was training at the time, once I got released, he was like, "Hey, take as much time as you want, but if this is something that you're interested in, like you can come on full time, give lessons, help me out here." And I was never a desk job guy. Like I can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. And I love the game too much to not stay in it. And I saw that as a route of, hey, I want to stay in it. I love working with players and helping players develop and hopefully get to their goals or get to where I was one day, right? Where if it's a player that wants to go make their high school team or make their college team, like I can help them through my experiences be able to get there. So once I kind of sat down and I was like, all right, I'm not going to play, but I want to try to stay in the game. I was like, all right, I think coaching seems to be my calling. I love doing it. I had a lot of really good feedback from players and parents that they love working with me, so it made it a relatively easy transition where like I never really lost the game. I was still in it, so that's where my head was, and I started working there. Um, and then the rest is history.
And so you work there for, a handful of years, you build up a clientele, and then you end up opening your own spot. At what point did you know, like, hey, this is time for me to kind of go out and venture on my own? Was that always
Yeah,
the plan, or did that kind of just come into the plan once you were like, wow, I'm really booked with people who want me, and I
it
can just,
was Yeah, it was always part of the plan. I mean, in college, I was a business management major, and everyone was always asking me like, "Hey, like, what do you want to do with it, or what do you want to do after playing?" And I was like, it would be awesome to open up a facility one day, and be able to run a facility of my own. Whether it was, I didn't know if it was going to be hitting, fielding, a little bit of both, coaching teams, um, and I had a really good thing going there, and I built up a pretty good clientele. But there was things that, just from a career standpoint, that I wanted to be able to do, and just I've always wanted to own my own place, so it was just kind of an expiration date hit, and I was like, I'm ready to take the risk and do it on my own, and put my own little flair on it. And so I took the risk and opened up and kind of branched off.
yeah. And now you've been opened up since late 2025. You've been at it for a couple of months now. I'll give you the opportunity to just kind of tell us how that's been and what it is that Premier Hitting Lab is at this point.
Yeah, man. So we opened up our doors on October 6th was day one. So it's been a little over 3 months now. And it's been great. I've had a lot of clientele follow me from my old spot. And then I've had a lot of also new faces come in, through social media, finding me and from referrals. And Premier Hitting Lab is built on my playing experience, but also I want to give the younger generation and hitters more than just a mechanical focus. So my biggest thing is like there's swing coaches and there's hitting coaches. And I'm not just a swing coach. I'm not going to just help you with your mechanics and where your front elbow needs to be, where your chest needs to be. Like I'm going to help you hit. In two strikes, what's going to change? What's your mindset when you get in the box? Like I want to teach guys how to fail and be able to adjust from there. Because that's one thing that I started to learn later on in life when I was playing with the Padres. Like we'd have mental classes. And I'm sure you kind of went through the same thing. And a lot of the younger generation, I think this gets kind of put to the side where they just chase the perfect mechanics versus trying to chase becoming a hitter and being able to compete when they get in the box.
And so, what do those mental classes kind of look like? Or is that something that you're currently running, or is that something you have come?
No, so that's something that in the future is hopefully a plan to start to run. But it's more so when I work with guys, and I follow a lot of different accounts. Like Brandon Geyer is one of my favorite guys to watch on social media. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen some of his stuff. Old big
Mhm.
leaguer. He always talks about focal points, finding a spot on your bat, taking a deep breath, and kind of honing in. And a lot of guys I try to talk about calming the mind, like positive self-talk. It's really easy to take one bad pitch, one bad at bat, and let it escalate into a bad game, a bad week. And it's try to avoid those and giving guys mental cues of trying to get back to their breath or trying to go, so what next pitch and move on to the next pitch and not let the previous pitch affect their entire at bat.
Yeah, definitely. Having an approach is something that I'm trying to talk to a lot of kids about. Again, I do more fielding and pitching, but I was fortunate to have a successful hitting career in college and things like that. So I'm always there to like talk it. I'm not really teaching it, but having the
Yeah.
approach, it seems like a lot of kids don't know what their focus is. Just even stepping into the cage and owning their process and having an idea of what they're trying to work on. You don't really see that until you get to college, if they're even teaching it, and then maybe you figure
Yeah.
it out around pro ball. A lot of these high school kids and below, I don't know how deep you need to go into approach, but it's definitely something that needs to be on their mind of at the very minimum, I'm getting into this cage and I'm going to work on X. And if that's what your answer is and that's where it stays, perfect. You're on the right
Yeah,
direction. But I was working with some kids last night through like a high school training group, and I would ask each one of them with no right or wrong answer, and I didn't really say much afterwards. I was just like, all right, what are we working on here? And it took them a couple of seconds, and then they're like, oh, I'll just, and everybody's just like, oh, I'm just trying to get my swings off, and it's like, well, there is a time and place for that. Round one,
yeah,
sure, but that can't be what you're doing every day in every round, just getting your swings in. Like that's not gonna cut it,
yeah.
right? So
No.
can you talk about like kind of your process and players' process and how they can go about figuring
Yeah.
out how to own it and how you kind of approach teaching it?
Yeah, yeah, man. So it all starts from honestly the second they walk into my facility. So I have an area that I call the activation station. And so what that is I took that from when I was with the Padres, and we were required before we stepped on the field, you had to activate. You had to go into the weight room, grab a foam roller, a medicine ball. You had to do something to stretch and get the body warmed up before you went on the field or in the cage to hit. And so I have an area where I have a TV screen. It has like three stretches or movements that hitters need to do before they hop in the cage. And so I want my guys or girls softball also included. When they warm up, they need to get warmed up before they hop in the cage. And then if once they're done warming up, they hop in the cage, they have to go through a tee routine. So just like you said, like I don't want them just stepping in the cage and then just hitting off the tee and just taking swings. There needs to be intent behind every single swing that they take in the cage. So most guys have their own personal routine or something that they like that they do off the tee, and then we'll progress to front toss, do some more mechanical work that way, and then when we go to BP, we have a little bit more mechanical work, but that's where we really hone in on the approach. And hey, what zones are you looking for? I have a little plank that has 7 baseballs on it. I have them trying to sit certain approaches, advantage count, two strike. Hey, this pitcher's living outside. So every single minute they're in here, there is a intent behind something that they're doing.
Yeah. And so can you kind of walk somebody out there who's maybe interested in learning from you, hitting with you, whatever it may be? Like what is your process to bring guys in and help evaluate whether they need a swing adjustment, a mental approach, they just need a routine. What does that all look like from behind the scenes?
Yeah. So every hitter that comes in here, their first session is a lab evaluation. So what that looks like is they'll come in for an hour, and it's for me to learn more about them and for them to learn about me. So they come in, they warm up, and then we go into the cage and they'll warm up off the tee and front toss and then take like 30 swings of batting practice. And during that time, I use technology. I have a hit tracks machine. So it's a simulator of every time they make contact. It shows on a major league field or college field where it would go, how hard they hit it, how far they hit it, and it also takes a video of every single swing. So I'm taking data and I'm taking video of all 30 of their swings that they take off of batting practice. They also will use a dime kinetic sensor. So just a sensor that goes on the bottom of their bat, gives me their bat speed, the way their bat's moving through the baseball, and all that. And then I take all that data and I try to simplify it to them. So it tracks their line drive percentage, how many ground balls they hit, and all that. And then we break down all the metrics, and then we break down their swing. I teach them about everything. And then we kind of blueprint, and I give them drills and feedback of, hey, if you're hitting a lot of ground balls, here's why. This is the mechanical adjustments you need to make. And then this is where line drives will pick up. And then I kind of set them a blueprint of, hey, if you work on these 3 or 4 drills or things over a span of time, you'll see your numbers increase. Um, and then I quiz them on their approach. Part of my process is I ask them, hey, when you get in the box, what's your thought OO? What's your thought with 2 strikes? Do you change anything? Are you widening out your base? Are you choking up? What zones are you sitting? And most of the time I get hitters that are like, I don't really have one, or I don't know what to think. And so when I hear that, I say, okay, that's part of also what we're going to work on, where we got to clean up some of these mechanical things, but we're also going to get you to have a plan when you step in the box, because I can take 2 hitters. One has good mechanics, but a terrible approach. And one has like okay mechanics, but a really good approach and they're aggressive. The person with okay mechanics is going to be more successful than the one that has good mechanics, but no approach, because they're going to be aggressive and hit the ball hard early versus the other one's going to be a little passive, and the mechanics won't even matter because they won't be swinging at the right pitch. Um, so that's part of it. It's a lot of data, but also trying to help them understand how they can get better through there. So I think I went on a tangent there, but that's kind of
Oh,
what
really?
everything
Yeah.
and
I'm
everything goes with
curious. I've
the
had some
there.
hitting guys on here in the past, some really good hitting guys, and one of the questions I like to talk to them about is approach. And I'm curious on, in your own words, what does approach mean? How do you explain approach to, a kid who doesn't have one? Is it just
So
having a plan? Is it that simple?
Um, for the younger kids, yeah, it's that simple. Just having a plan when you step in the box, right? Like if I have an 8 to 10 year old, it's really hard to kind of get in the weeds of, hey, when you get in the box, if the pitcher's living outside, like you need to shift your zone to outside. So it's more so with younger kids, I just tell them, hey, you got to have a plan. And what that means is, hey, I want them just literally sitting a fastball right down the middle, being aggressive and almost expecting like it's there, so they're ready for it, and letting their eyes just react and not swinging it. Versus if I have an older guy, like a college guy, I'm like, hey, you need to sit in the dugout and watch the pitcher warm up, watch a couple hitters, and that's how you're going to formulate your approach. How are they attacking other left-handed hitters in the lineup if you're a lefty? How are they attacking right-handed hitters? When the pitcher gets to 2 strikes, are they going automatically to the curveball? And so that when you step in the box, you have a pretty good calculated idea of, okay, I'm going to sit heater early in the count, and when he gets to 2 strikes, I know I can adjust. And now, hey, he's throwing curveball every single time. I'm going to sit curveball in that 2 strike account early and be able to foul off that fastball if he throws it. So it really depends on the age or the maturity of a hitter. But having a plan is probably a good broad spectrum, but there's a lot that falls underneath it depending on maturity and age.
Yeah. And so when it comes to like studying and stuff, are you somebody who talks journaling, or do you journal, or do you do like written plans in the dugout or anything like that? Is that something that you've
Yeah, so when I
explored?
was playing, this is one of the biggest things they kind of taught me when I was with the Padres was journaling. I've never heard of journaling until I got to pro ball. And so it was like you sit down before practice or your game and you write your wins. Your wins before the game started, whether you activated or you had more intentional work off the tee. And then after the game, you have to write down kind of what you learned. Hey, if you struck out, you have to kind of go through that at bat. Did you strike out? Did you take a pitch early in the count you probably should have hit? And learn from the game and kind of journal that so that you can bring it to the next day and go from there. So I did that a lot while I was playing.
And is that something that you're trying to actively give to kids, or do you think that's a little bit too much for high school and maybe it can't be utilized until maybe like college, professional levels?
I think it's hitter dependent. I think there's high school kids that are mature enough and in a good enough spot that can use it, but you also have to make sure that it's someone that will put in the time to do it because you can't just journal once and then be like, oh, this didn't work, and then stop doing it. So it's someone that um, needs to continuously be able to do it and understand how to do it. So that's something with college guys, definitely. I preach and talk about. High school guys, not so much. I'd rather them try to simplify a little bit more and kind of talk to me through it, and I'll talk to them through it. And hey, sometimes I'll tell some of my high school guys when we're working together, if they find a cue or a feel that they really like, I go, hey, open up your notes on your phone and write it down so that, hey, if you have a bad game, look in your notes and you can say, hey, when I was hitting really well, maybe it was keeping the back shoulder up higher or keeping the hands back longer so that they can kind of snap out of whatever funk they get into.
Yeah. Are there any like staples across all your hitters that you kind of see yourself leaning towards, like things that you're like, all right, all of the hitters that are good that come through this are doing this, simple thing, and this is something that I believe now, having coached, hundreds, if not thousands of kids at this point for you, can all benefit from. Is there anything like that?
I would say the biggest thing has been routines off the tee. Because especially something I've noticed is that the tee can formulate bad habits if it's not used the right way because the
Yeah.
ball's not moving. And so the biggest thing is like things change when the ball's moving and there's spin and the plane changes every single time. So all my high level hitters and all the best hitters that I work with, their tee work isn't just swings, it's with intent. They maybe do 2 or 3 drills and maybe take like 3 to 5 normal swings. The rest is just drill work. And so I've been starting to try to do that with some of my younger guys and then having them take their full swings when the ball's moving because there's a lot that can go wrong mechanically with a ball not moving versus when the ball's moving.
Yeah,
So
and
I would
everybody
say,
goes through T work. Like every high school, every youth program has T work, and sometimes it can feel mundane and monotonous, where you're just like, God, I'm just on this T again. So, what are some things if you were a baseball player now in high school and you had to hit off the tee, for hours? Some coaches are just like preaching reps and getting in as many swings as possible, and you're just like, dude, I'm good on the tee, right? As a professional
Yeah.
hitter, you know that like, hey, once you're good on the tee, you don't have to sit there and keep swinging off the tee. Just move on, or you're done for the day. Where some of these players are asked to just swing over and over on the team. So how would you approach that as a player in today's game?
So what I preach to all my guys is it's quantity over quality. I mean, quality over quantity.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't listen to the first thing I said, but it's if I tell a kid, I would rather you put in 10, 15 minutes of intentional work off the tee than put in an hour of just swings off the tee to say you hit for an hour today. And it's even if you're at practice and your coach is just having you hit off the tee, take longer breaks in between sets or try to delay the tee work a little bit or take your full swings, but have intent behind every swing that you're trying to have and not just going rep after rep after rep just to say, hey, I took 100 swings or I hit for an hour. So I have a lot of my guys that right now it's hard to hit outside. It's freezing cold or snow on the ground. They can't get inside somewhere. Some of them hit in their driveway. I say, hey, go out there for 10 minutes, throw on a hoodie, throw on a beanie, and go out there for 10 minutes and go through tee routine. Go through 3 sets of 3 drills, 10 swings, kind of like you would in the gym, and then be done. Don't take any full swings, just have intentional work, and that'll be good enough for the day. You don't need to go out there and take 100 swings, full swings, especially right now.
Yeah. And I think, that leads me into my next question where, yes, we are in an area that isn't fortunate to be able to really train outside for months out of the year. And there's other places like that. And, there's plenty of kids who want to get their work in. So how do they overcome that, right? So how are they getting better when there's kids in Texas, Florida, California, Georgia, Alabama who are able to get outside, see the ball come off the bat on a field, see, pitching machine and get into the box. But then you got the kid from, New Jersey who's got his tee and his net in his garage and it's, 9 degrees outside. How do you level the playing field for that kid?
Yeah, so that's really tough, and that's why it's tough to really stand out or kind of get in all the work in this area. But something I would tell that kid is, hey, there's 7 days in a week. If you can get one day that per week where you can go to a cage somewhere that has a machine or someone can throw you BP and you can see the ball moving, that will help you in the long run as it gets closer because you'll have hopefully 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in maybe February, early March before the season starts to get outside and see the ball moving. But doing your best where at least once, maybe twice a week, if you can go somewhere where there's a machine, you can see the live velocity as best you can, trying to mix that in at least once or twice a week to challenge you. And if you can't stay with the intentional work off the tee, and there's nothing really you can do about that other than making sure you stay consistent with that and don't be like, oh, I can't, so I'm only going to do it once a week, and then that'll be it.
What are your thoughts on machines? I've heard differing, opinions. There's some guys who live and die by it. Obviously, it's going to give you the most realistic look when it comes to velocity, but then other people are, I remember when I was coming up, machines were like, don't get on machines. You don't want to get timed up with that thing. It's not realistic hitting. You're just
Dude,
gonna,
100%.
set yourself up for failure. As I've gotten older now, like I just can't see the downside of having a machine, but I'm curious to
Dude.
hear your own thoughts on machine work.
So I've done a complete almost like 360 of my thought on the machine. So when I played, I was the same way. I was like, I hate hitting the machine. I don't want to hit the machine. The timing's different. It doesn't feel like an actual live pitch. We actually used it a lot when I was with the Padres, so I probably should have been like, hey, maybe I should use it more on my own. Um, but then when I first started coaching and giving lessons, like I also didn't use it that much because I was like, players don't like using it. It forms bad habits because the timing's off and it doesn't feel like a live pitch. But I've now noticed that I was totally wrong and I need to use the machine more. It's the best way to simulate velo inside in winter without having me blow out my arm trying to throw 70 miles per hour in a 40-foot cage. And it's something that I've found, even if it's not realistic from a velo standpoint, or I should say more so a timing standpoint, it teaches players to be uncomfortable in a practice setting. Because the reason why players don't use it is they don't want to be uncomfortable in a cage because they'd rather have that feel good money BP and they can hit the ball 95 miles per hour every single time and leave the cage being really happy. Great, I had a great session. I use that to my advantage and I want to make my guys uncomfortable. I want to use the machine and I want them leaving pissed off and wanting to come back next time and conquer the machine and hit it better because that's going to get them better to hit better outside of here versus just throwing them feel good BP every time and they leave super, super happy. And it's contrary to popular belief. I want my hitters to leave pissed, but there's no better feeling as a hitter is let's say they go 2 weeks in a row, they can't hit the machine for anything, but that third week when they finally get it and they start squaring up consistently off the machine, they're going to feel better than they would have felt leaving with me throwing money BP. So it's something that I've really switched my focus on, and I am trying to use the machine as much as I can and being careful to make sure I don't use it too much where mechanics are going out the window, but challenging guys to be uncomfortable in the cage and making it as game like as possible.
And so how do you like implement it into your overall programming, right? Because the machine can offer certain things depending on what machine you have. For this instance, let's talk about like, your normal hack attack and A tech, things like that that have the ability to have fastballs, sliders, curveballs from both sides, offset BP, high tunneling. Maybe if you have two machines, you can do a couple of different things, whatever it may be. Like, how are you using it, and what are
Using
you seeing as far as like success using it, and maybe some things where you were like, man, I thought this would work, but I'm not really seeing the results that maybe I was hoping for.
Yeah. So I have the mini junior hack. That's all I have right now. I would love to get a second machine and do the two ball and double offset and all that. But so I have the mini hack, and I only really use the machine with players that I'm comfortable with enough from a mechanical standpoint that know that they're in a good spot. Right. Like I'm not going to have somebody come in for their eval and they come in for one lesson and then throw them on the machine and say, hey, good luck, hit this 95-mile-per-hour fastball that it's going to simulate. I need to make sure a hitter's in a good enough spot mechanically where they can now be less focused on that. But a lot of players, like when they get to that spot, I do a lot of straight up machine work, velo. I'll do offset left, offset right. I'll do off speed, offset, and then I'll also go like alternating rounds. So my first round, I'll have them go velo simulate mid eights to high eights, and then the second round will go off speed, and then I'll go back to velo and kind of change up their timing relative to the speed. And I find that gives it that game like feel of, hey, okay, you're geared up to that 95, but now they bring in that relief pitcher that's throwing a lot of that off speed stuff. You need to change your timing and be able to adjust from there. And I've found a lot of success with that where players are starting to be able to make the adjustment quicker the more that we do that. And I utilize that machine and the different timing with that.
Yeah. What are some other like modalities or tools that you're using with some of your players? Are I see you doing a couple of different things, right? You got the dog chuck it toys. I see maybe
Yep.
some frisbee throws. Like, what are
Yep.
some things that you're using? And then like, if you could just also give a breakdown on who those are for, right? Because not every tool is for everybody. So,
Right.
what are you seeing in some of these tools that you're going to explain? What are you seeing in a kid's swing that goes, oh, light bulb? Hey, I think you're going to utilize this, and by using this, it's going to help you, feel
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So the Chuck the Toy or the Path Trainer that I have, it's that little looks like a ice cream scoop basically. You put a little softball in it and it's just to slow the swing down and to get players to get the feel of being able to swing slowly and then release. Result doesn't matter. All the drills that I have, I do with all my hitters to start. I don't continuously do them with them because there might be a drill like I can do that drill with the Path Trainer with one kid and then his swing looks even worse after. I'm not going to continue to do that drill. But have another drill where I do split grip, where I have this cool bat from Tater Bats. It's got a little flare halfway up, and it has the hitter. They can hold the top part, and that gives like a 3 inch gap between the hands, and it really emphasizes back shoulder, top hand, and back elbow, and being strong, keeping everything through. I do that with a lot of my guys, and it seems to work really well. Um, and the way I track it is okay, if we do a drill and then either their swings right after or their swings later on, like clean up really fast. I'm like, okay, this is a good drill for you. I write it down. Like I have notes on all my guys. I almost feel like I'm a doctor. After every single session, I'm on my computer typing up notes and making sure that I'm remembering things that worked for them and all that. And we'll continuously do that drill. Or if it doesn't work, same thing. We won't use it because it's not helping them get better. Um, a new thing that I started implementing is vision training. And so what that is, I have these applied vision strobe glasses and they blink and they flicker. So it cuts off the vision and then it lets you see again. Yeah.
Oh, it's Nike.
Yeah. So I have those. They're
No,
not Nike. No, they're not Nike.
okay. I think
Uh,
Nike discontinued theirs. Yeah.
yeah. So I got them from the Applied Vision. And so It's to work predictive timing, swing decision, and just challenge the brain and their eyesight. So I have them throw those on. And then I have these colored like softballs, and I'll throw two at the same time, and I'll call out a color. And their job is they need to pick out what color I call and be able to swing at the right one. And so what it does is that helps them work on predictive timing. If you see a curveball and you can recognize the spin early, you got to predict, okay, if it's starting middle, it's going to go down. Or hey, if you see a changeup and you see that side spin, you know it's going to break down. It gives them that kind of real live feedback where they can't see. If that ball's up and then they lose it, they have to know it's going to come back down. So when they see again, they got to be able to be ready to swing at the one down. So that's also a new thing that I've kind of implemented is vision training and trying to help challenge the brain to be able and the eyes to be able to predict where the ball is going to be and help with that approach and swing decision and all of that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I love that. I love the eye vision training. I think that's something that gets overlooked for sure.
100%. Because it's like,
Yeah, I just don't know a lot of places that are doing it. My mom was forward thinking enough to get me into it, and I think that it helped. I don't want to say I live and die by it, but it definitely made me think about hitting in a different way. It made me focus more on like my eyesight and making sure that like are my eyes good? You know, like are am I
yeah,
seeing what I need to see? Like am I able to pick up the spin of balls? Am I able to pick up the laces? Can I really see spin? I'm focusing on spin. And once you can really see and understand spin, I think your hitting can take a step in the right direction because spin only gets faster. It only gets harder to pick up, and the
yep,
seams get tighter, so it gets really difficult. Right now in college and in high school, most high schools and maybe some colleges, the spin is loopy. They're loopy curveballs. They're half broken in changeups. The majority of pitches are fastballs, so it's easy to kind of pick it up. You start
yeah,
getting around dudes who are throwing mid upper 80s, low 90s, mid 90s, and that spin is just so tight. I mean, you
yeah.
have to do everything you can to have great vision to be able to pick that stuff up and make decisions on where that ball is going to ultimately end up.
Right. And that's something that like, yeah, I don't think it's really taught at all. And something that like I'm still learning. Like I don't know everything
Yeah.
about it, but I've watched a couple of videos on it. And I know the Nationals use it. And it's something that like we strength train, we train our bat speed, we train our mechanics, we train our approach, but the eyes are what's the almost one of the most important things when it comes to hitting because you got to be able to see the ball to hit the ball. And so why are we not training that? Why are we not training reaction time? Why are we not training vision or trying to challenge ourselves to be able to have predictive timing with that off speed and being able to recognize spin early? Um, and I find with that one thing that I see is like a lot of young hitters don't know where to look before the ball's coming in. Like when I use the vision goggles, guys will swing and miss. I'm like, all right, where are you starting with your eyes? They're like, oh, I'm watching your hand move all the way to across and then down. And I'm like, no, look at release point. So you don't have to keep the eyes moving too much while it's blinking. And then from that release point, you'll be able to see it earlier. So it's a lot of also teaching guys, hey, where do you need to look when a pitcher's throwing so you're not moving the eyes too much? And that makes it easier to then also see the pitch coming in and where it's at.
Yeah, it's good stuff too. I mean, yeah, just that little shift right there could help somebody probably listening to this right now. It's just like, oh, I've always followed the eye, or I'm always just looking at the pitcher. And it's like, no, like let's look at where that slot's coming out, that ball's coming out. You're gonna already beat the pitcher to that spot, and now you're a little bit ahead of the game
Yeah.
already for you.
Yeah.
My next question is like, when you're hitting and you're a baseball player and you're failing 7 times out of 10, what how do you grade yourself on success? Like you could be 0 for 10 to start the season, but feel pretty good about your swing, and you could be 5 for 10 and feel really crummy about your swing. So how do
Yeah.
you go about deciphering success in the box?
So to me, success in the box, quality of contact, and approach and swing decision, right? So kind of like you said, you can be 0 for 10, but you could have hit 7 out of 10 balls right off the barrel, really hard right at somebody. Or you could be 5 for 10 and have a lot of jam shot bloop hits. So I agree with success on how hard you hit it. I'd rather you be 0 for 10, squaring up every single ball because baseball gods always even it up. You'll start to get some that fall, flares, and all of that. I also great success. How are you being aggressive early in the count? Are you getting into a lot of two strike counts? If I have a hitter that's getting into a lot of two strike counts, my first thought is, okay, they're being passive and they're not being aggressive. And that's why they're getting to a lot of two strike counts. And they'll probably struggle because of that. So I grade it off two scales: quality of contact and kind of how your at bats look from a pitch selection, swing decision standpoint.
Okay. And so when you're looking and trying to grade your own swings as a player, what are you grading? How, like in counts, you're journaling, I guess, and looking at the counts that you make contact in and
Yeah,
what
I would grade it more so about how early in the count you're swinging and how aggressive you're being. So I tell a lot of my guys, I want you trying to get out of the box within the first three pitches, because within the first three pitches, you're
pitcher love
probably
to
gonna
hear that. Appreciate
it,
you. Appreciate you putting that out
yeah.
there.
But on the opposite side, right? As a pitcher, what's your goal? You're trying to get ahead, right? So within those first three, you're probably going to get a good pitch to hit, and if you miss that one pitch, you're going to be in trouble. And this is where it's that constant fight between the pitcher and the hitter is, yeah, the pitcher wants to get ahead and likes you being aggressive, but as the hitter, you need to be aggressive because you don't want to let that pitcher turn the count in their favor. Um, so I mean, I grade it a lot towards kind of it's more so than just the results. It's a lot of quality of contact, but also reflecting on your at bats and are you swinging at the right pitches early? Are you chasing? Are you fishing at that curveball low too early in the count? Are you getting yourself into bad counts because you're either taking or swinging at ones that aren't in the zone?
So I think a lot of kids in today's world too will go into, oh my God, I suck. I need to change my mechanics. In your mind, when you're coaching a kid, what is the order of operations that has to happen before you're like, all right, let's look at your mechanics, right? What are everything that you have to check off and be like, yeah, you're not doing that, you're not doing that, you're not doing that, or you are doing that, you're doing that, you're doing that. Okay, maybe it is your mechanics finally.
Number one is approach and mindset. So if I have a kid, and this happens a lot, I'll have a kid that works really hard in the off season, and they go out in their first weekend, they struggle, and they come back and they're like, "Oh, dude, my elbow's dropping, my shoulder's dropping, I'm getting under everything." I'm like, "No, that's not why. It's gonna you haven't seen live pitching in a while, and it could be your approach." So I ask them, "Hey, when you get in the box, what are your thought? What's your zone? What's your approach?" And we kind of go from there. If they're saying, "Hey, I'm sitting off speed early and I'm swinging through all the fastballs. Now it's okay. We got to change your approach. Let's sit heater and be more aggressive on the heater early, and then we'll go to the mechanics later." Mechanics to me is usually the last thing I talk about with a hitter when they're struggling early, because especially coming from this area, you don't see a lot of live pitching before you get out in the field. So it also takes time, kind of like anything else with hitting off the machine or making mechanical adjustments. You got to see live a little bit more to be able to get better at it or start to get your timing down. So timing is another thing that we talk about early on in the season. So it's probably approach and then timing, and then mechanics would probably be like the third and last thing that I talk about with a hitter when they're struggling.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would throw something else in there too. Is I think it's pitch selection. I think a lot of kids are swinging at pitches that maybe they shouldn't be swinging at, out of the zone, even in the zone. Sometimes there's pitches in the zone
Yeah.
that you shouldn't be swinging at. I'm curious to get your thoughts on like plate coverage and how you teach plate coverage. Is it something that you expect players to be able to cover the entire plate at a certain age, or how do you
Yeah.
decipher what side of the plate or what zone of the plate they should be going after?
Yeah. So I put that pitch selection and swing decision kind of in that approach category. And so kind of how I train that is I have a wood plank. It's like 22 inches wide, and I have seven baseballs like drawn out on it. And I have rounds where baseballs 2 to 6 are the strike zone. Before two strikes, I want my hitters being somewhere within that 2 to 6, whether they're sitting middle in, which would be numbers 3 and 4, whether they're sitting middle out, that's 4 and 5. I want them somewhere within the 2 to 6 area. And if there's anything thrown not in their area, they're taking it early. They're not swinging at it, they're being disciplined on it. And then when two strikes happens, I want them covering 1 to 7. And 1 and 7 are like one ball off the plate. Trying to be able to cover at least one ball off to either foul it off or try to put something in play, because umpires are going to call ball off and pitchers are going to want to try to get you to chase. We got to try to eliminate letting the umpire make the decision for us. And so that's kind of how I work that is I have them within that 2 to 6 and try to find them and have them learn the zone that way and then have them formulate their approach that way.
Do you ever do any like off balance training? The only reason I ask is I remember in college we used to like practice this a ton where we practiced basically being fooled out on our front side but still keeping the hands back. And then you go to realize that like in most hitting facilities and most kids who hit, they're always taking like swings in like the perfect, rhythm. Balls out in front, balls here. We're
Yep.
not really ever getting fooled and things like that. And now when you get into a game, it's like you'd be lucky to get five of those swings in a
Yeah.
season that you went perfect, perfect, your swing, and you were right on time. So how do you go about like, I guess, training that? There's some things that you mentioned with the uh, machine work and trying to get some different
Yep.
timing there. But do you ever practice like just being fooled, or how can a kid implement that?
Yeah. So I don't specifically practice anything of them getting fooled. But what I do is when I have them zoned up in certain areas, like there's times it happens all the time. They're zoned into their perfect pitch, which is 3 to 4, and they'll get fooled. And I'll throw one on 6, but they'll smoke it. I will make a point to tell them that that's okay because some guys will get pissed that they swing outside of their zone, but I let them know that you don't need to take the perfect swing, right? Like there's always hitting coaches that talk about your A swing and your B swing. Your A swing is that perfect middle fastball. Everything's timed up, synced up perfectly, and you square it up in the gaps easily every time. That B swing is letting your natural athletic ability and your hand-eye coordination be able to get the barrel to the ball to be able to hit a line drive or get a knock over the shortstop's head, second baseman's head. So the only way I really do train that is when I do machine work. I'll go off speed, but I'll have hitters time it up like it's a fastball. So instead of them timing it up like it's a normal, like the off speed, like it's loopy, they load late. I have them load early, and I want them getting their foot down early and being able to keep the hands back and taking the off speed the other way, almost like they were geared up for that fastball. So that's probably the only thing that I do that's specifically for the bad ball swings. But I will always make sure that I tell my hitters because I'll have hitters all the time swing at bad balls, but hit line drives and hit flares over the second baseman's head and be pissed off. And I'm like, no, that's okay because I just threw that ball down and away and it's not really a strike, but you're going to get that same swing in a game. Now, I don't, if we're working a 2-0 count, I don't want that same swing. But if we're just going rounds of BP and I'm having them swing, I make it a point to be like, hey, you don't need your A swing on every single one. If you get a hit like that, that's okay. But let's make sure if we're going 2-0, 3-1 advantage count, we're kind of limiting those type of swings.
And last question here, I just this one just randomly came to my mind, but like, what about like mirror training? Is that something that you're a fan of? Do you do that? Like, I'm just trying to think of ways for kids up north right now, specifically who are inside, to like continuously get better, and that seems to
Yeah.
be a way. But also, I would love to hear from you on the benefits and how they even go about standing in front of a mirror and actually feeling like they're getting work in.
Yeah, no, it's super important. I don't have one. I have a spot in here that I know I'm gonna put a mirror. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. It's really important, just the visual aspect and the feel aspect at the same time. And that's also why like having the video feedback that I have is super important because a hitter can feel like they're moving their hands a certain way or moving their body in a certain way, but they can look back at the video and see if it actually happens. So the mirror training is important where you can stand in the mirror and if you need to work your hands to get a little bit lower, you can just stand there and be able to rep out and just load and stop or load and go through your swing and watch the hands get to the good spot. One funny thing I do talk a lot of my hitters about is younger hitters, I mean, players in general love playing video games. They love playing video games. And I tell all my guys, if they give me an excuse, oh, it was too cold this week, I couldn't go outside and swing. I'm like, hey, did you play video games this week? Majority of them are like, yep. I'm like, all right, if you're playing Fortnite, for example, there's a lobby. I'm like, when you're waiting in between games, grab your bat, grab a PVC pipe. We do a couple drills. I'm like, rep out 10 just dry swings or dry movements in between each Fortnite game. You play for 2 hours, you're going to get 50, 60, 70 reps in that hour that you wouldn't have gotten if you were just sitting there scrolling on your phone, scrolling on TikTok, and kind of making the excuse, oh, I couldn't do anything this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that comes down to habits. Something I talk about a lot with my players a ton. It's just like, well, how do you make a good habit? You have to make it super easy for you. So for a kid who wants to do more dry reps and wants to do that, okay, so how would you do that? Well, coach, I hit in the garage and all my stuff is in there. Well, just take a bat and like leave it in your room. And that way when you pass it, you have to, consciously make the decision that you're not going to pick it up. And then if you have to pass it 30, 40 times a day, one of those times,
Yeah, pick it
hoping
up,
that
do
you pick it
something.
up and do something with it. Now you're
Yeah,
getting a little bit better, or if you're looking to get better at fielding and you've got tennis balls, like leave tennis balls around, things like that. But you
yeah,
make your habits super easy to
yeah,
get to.
man. And
It's
it's one of
hard.
those,
It's hard to do
yeah,
it inside.
we've
I'm
all
not
been
going to sit
through
here
it.
and be like it's easy. Like that's super hard to get up and when it's cold and be like, oh, I'll go get some work in. Nobody's watching. Who cares at this point?
Yeah. And like I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it as players. There's days you wake up, you're like, oh man, I don't feel like doing it today. Like I'm exhausted. It's cold. It's dark. But like you got to do it. Even like the smallest thing, and being able to, when you're not feeling it and you don't want to do it, but being able to at least go out there and do it a little bit will help you in the long run because it compounds. It compounds over time.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on today. I want to talk
Good.
quickly for those
Yeah.
listening that are local. Tyler and I have become friends at this point. We're
Yeah,
starting
man.
to have more and more conversations, and we're trying to figure out better ways to help and support the baseball community here in Morris County. So if you're a Morris County resident, player, fan of what we do and who we are, we're going to be hosting live ABs for the high school kids starting February 15th.
Yes,
If you're
sir.
interested in some of the live ABs, I'm going to be having my pitchers come. He's going to have some hitters come, and then we're going to be looking for spots for people that maybe don't work with us. So if you're interested at all, you can reach out to me at mdelarosa@njltheat.com. Or Tyler, what's your email?
Yeah, you can hit me up at tyler.benson@premierhittinglabnj.com. You can also shoot me a DM on Instagram, Premier Hitting Lab, and we will hook it up.
Yeah, definitely. And I will also put all of his information in the bio. So whether you're watching this on YouTube, listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, or Apple podcast, everything will be down below. But again, starting in February 15th and going through baseball season, up until baseball season, sorry. So every Sunday we got from 8 to 11 a.m. So 3 hours worth of live ABs. We are going to be hosting those here in the Morris County area. So for more information, reach out to us. Tyler will be there helping all of the hitters. I will be with all the pitchers. So this will differ a little bit from just like, hey, go out there and compete. We want
Yeah,
to make it a little bit different. We want to be talking to hitters in between at bats. I'm going to be helping the pitchers making pitch decisions live on the spot, understanding what players are swinging at, understanding where their maybe holes in their swings are. And, Tyler and I will battle it out, duke it out, and see
yeah. And
who comes out on the
one
other side.
one v one, coach be coach.
There you
Work.
go. There you go.
Make sure
So
my hitters freaking hit the ball hard. Work approach,
yeah,
swing
we'll
decision,
give
all
him
that.
one free
Have a plan.
fastball. He gets one free fastball.
See, I told you, pitchers always give a free fastball early.
There you go. It'll be late in the count though, and it might be inside on the hands to set up the
All right.
slider away, move the feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, any parting words for the people listening?
No, man. I appreciate you having
Anybody
me on.
listening? I don't know. I don't really know
Huh?
who listens to these. I got locked out of my account, so I don't really know how many people get on these anymore.
I'm sure a ton of people do. I'm
I
sure, I'm
hope
sure
that's
a
what I'm
ton
gonna
of
tell
people.
myself. I'm gonna tell myself thousands of people listen to this.
Yeah. No, everyone, whoever's out there, if you're listening, keep working hard. I know it seems like making it playing in college or playing on your high school team, playing pro ball is far away, but you control your destiny. Keep working hard, do your thing, and don't regret it when you're done that you didn't put in the work. And I appreciate
Well,
you having me on, man. I appreciate it, man.
yes, sir. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you soon, brother.
Yes, sir.